Broadcasting from the Civic Cypress Studios, welcome to the QR Code, where we share perspectives, seek understanding, and shape outcomes. He is the one and only, the incredible Q Ward.
So he's talking about himself. I just work here, but that's Ramsey's job.
And we are happy to be back on your radios again. And today's going to be a special episode. I want you to stick around because later in the show, we are going to be having a conversation about happiness. Does more money lead to more happiness? Well, I'll spoil it a bit for you, but the answer is both yes and no. And we're going to get into those weeds. We're also going to be talking about some more Black conservative type of talking points, I guess, speech coming from Nelly, the one and only rapper of country grammar fame. But this part of the show, we are going to be speaking to a dear friend of ours. She goes by the name of Amy Owen, better known on social media as Pineapple Lawyer. And she's in the studio with us today. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ramses.
And
Thank you.
For those that don't know, she has worked major civil rights cases alongside Ben Crump, who's also a friend of the show. And I've been texting him. So he's going to come on here eventually.
Yes, he's a busy guy.
Yeah,
busy guy.
I know, especially now. But Amy's also known for working alongside professional athletes, celebrities, and other high-profile individuals. And you can find her online at Pineapple Lawyer. And we are going to be having a conversation about some recent developments with the Trump administration and some powers that are bestowed upon him by the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's, I guess, limiting of powers elsewhere in the judicial branch, and the implications of all that. So we have all of that and so much more to stick around for. So we hope that you do. But before we get too far beyond where we need to be, it's time for a feel-good feature. So today's feel-good feature comes from ABC News, and I will share. A historic $1 billion donation to a medical school in New York City has provided students with free tuition moving forward. Albert Einstein College of Medicine in the Bronx received $1 billion in donations from Dr. Ruth Goetzman, I believe that's or Gottsman, one of the two, a former professor and chair of the school's board of trustees, the institution announced in a press release on Monday. The massive donation, a transformational gift, the school said, is among the largest ever made to a university in the United States and seemingly the largest made to an American medical school, according to the institution. The $1 billion donation will ensure that no student at Einstein will ever have to pay tuition again. Dr. Philip Uzzah, president and CEO of Montefiore Einstein, the umbrella organization for Albert Einstein College of Medicine and Montefiore Health System, said in the announcement, sorry, these are new sounds I'm having to make with my mouth. All current fourth-year students will be reimbursed for their spring 2024 semester tuition, and beginning at the start of the next term, all students moving forward will receive free tuition at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, the school said. Tuition and fees for 1 year at the medical school total over $63,000, and more than half the medical students owe upwards of $200,000 in student debt after graduating, the Albert Einstein College of Medicine says on its website. Almost half the students are New Yorkers, and nearly 60% of students at the university are women, according to the institution. So that felt positive, and we'll take positive wherever we can get it around here. Q's the one that sent this over. Anything to add here, Q?
It's good to have something good to talk about.
Yeah.
Because it's real easy right now to get bogged down on very stressful, discouraging, and just outright negative stories. So I'm glad that we even have a feature on something that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Amy Owen, we've had many conversations, and we appreciate you taking the time to come back and talk to us again. Usually, for folks that are just kind of coming to the table, when it comes time to kind of make heads or tails of the judicial system or criminal proceedings or lawsuits or whatever, Amy's the person that we talk to. So
that is my world.
Yes,
it's a very convoluted, ever-changing.
Let's do this. Introduce yourself. I know I gave a brief introduction, but introduce yourself to our listeners. Make sure everybody knows who you are. And remind them where to find you, because I know that your social media is super popping right now on Beyonce's internet, as Q would say. But also, let's let the folks know who they're going to be hearing from today.
Sure. So my real name's Amy Owen, but my nickname is Pineapple Lawyer. I'm known in my community as Pineapple Lawyer because it's easy to remember. I handle civil rights and personal injury for anyone really, but I do specialize in celebrities, athletes, people who are a little bit more high profile. Oftentimes hire me because I have some ins and outs with that world based on my past. And I love helping people in general. So people can find me on Pineapple Lawyer on Instagram, TikTok, all of those platforms. It's Pineapple Lawyer. My actual website is www.amyowenlaw.com. Okay. But I think if you put in Pineapple Lawyer, it populates that as well. But yeah, I just love coming on here. I love talking to you and Q about relevant issues. I love being your legal go-to. I'll get a text message from you, and I'm always like, it's going to be something good from Ramses and Q and Civic Cypher and all the different platforms that you have. Sure. So thank you so much for having me on. I'm so proud of the work that you guys are doing. It's so necessary. Thank you. Especially right now, it's like really, really needed. So
yeah. Well, speaking of which, I'll kick us off, Q. So over the weekend, a lot of headlines about the latest developments with respect to the Supreme Court's decisions. First off, talk to us a little bit about that and what you make of it, or what you've made of it so far.
Sure. So in law school, one of my favorite subjects was constitutional law. That's where you learn about the different branches of government, the presidential branch, the Congress, and the judicial branch, of course, the Supreme Court. And what's really interesting is the interplay between those three branches of government. So it's very important to know that the Supreme Court is probably the most powerful aspect of the government because they're the ones who make sure that the Constitution is read, interpreted, and followed by the courts of law, by the states, or by the country in general as a whole, right? So this decision coming down that kind of takes away some of the power of the Supreme Court is very frightening. And it's frightening, especially to, I think, people who are involved in the legal profession, like myself, because, you know, we want the consistency of having checks and balances in place for the different branches of government. And I think this is eroding that, and it's scary. Like, we don't want it to turn into a dictatorship. We don't want one branch of the government to be so omnipotent that it can squash the jobs of the other parts of the government. And I feel like this is inching towards that, and it's very scary.
Q, your thoughts?
You know, a lot of people, when we kind of saw what was coming and started to try to ring the alarm bells, always assumed that checks and balances would save us. Like, yeah, sure, the dude is, you know, a bully, and, you know, there's all these red flags about him and all the things that he's promising that he's going to do to harm people. But there's checks and balances in this country, and one person can't just decide to do whatever they want to do, right? There's guardrails. There's these systems in place, these age-old systems that have always been in place. And what you and I recognize and try to explain to people is this is not politics as usual. And as we see this guy rigging everything and really setting things up so that he controls every lever of government, you kind of saw these things coming. And even before he was reelected, you know, conversations about immunity to the president by justices that he put in place or that were pro him, we saw that those things were being put in place for times like this, so that eventually all power would be consolidated to the executive branch. It's a terrifying reality for me. I'm giving you guys the most calm version of myself. You know, there's nights where I don't sleep because I know what people that look like us are going through. I've been very, very outspoken about what life is like for my family personally now. Rams and I have a video up having that conversation that has gone viral. A lot of support, but also a lot of people who are like, you know, you guys should have done it the right way. Those people assuming that me and my family are not citizens is the funny part. It was never about legality or documentation. It was that when you look like us and you speak the language that my children speak, you become a target for an administration that does not care about legality or documents or paperwork. This is a really hate forward administration. And as you would notice, if you're watching the news or reading the headlines, they're not cracking down on criminal enterprises. They're showing up at immigration hearings and showing up at people's workplaces and hospitals and courthouses and terrorizing people, and knowing that the protections that have always existed to stand in the way of people like this doing very unlawful and unconstitutional things to people, that those protections are just kind of melting away. It's a really, really uncomfortable and scary time for our country right now.
I agree with you, Q. It's awful.
Well, so let's talk about the actual Supreme Court decision. So, the outcome, in short, from the most recent Supreme Court session, I guess, is what they would call it. I'm not so familiar with the language that they use, but the outcome, in short, states that federal judges lack the authority to grant nationwide injunctions. And so correct me if I'm wrong, but there are federal judges in the states, right? But they're federal judges. So there'll be federal judges in Colorado or Connecticut or whatever.
Correct. They're district. They're
district,
figured out
so
by
that's what that means. District
they're
court
by regions and things like that.
Gotcha. Okay,
yes.
that makes sense. So these judges have been, or their courtrooms, I guess, is where a lot of lawsuits have been filed to stop the Trump administration's many endeavors into fundamentally changing the culture of the United States of America with his, what are those things that you sign on the first day of office? What are they called? Or I'm the new
Executive
president.
orders.
Executive orders, right. So people would file lawsuits in these lower courts in Colorado and in Connecticut, those places. And it would prevent Donald Trump from implementing his executive orders because they would halt his proceedings while it was tied up in the court, right? That's my understanding so far. And the Supreme Court says that those federal judges now lack the authority to grant nationwide injunctions, meaning that that is no longer a viable, I guess, course of action for gumming up the Trump administration for folks that feel like this is a hostile government. So first question is, do I have that right? And second question is, how scary is that? Is there any other recourse beyond that? Is there any legal mechanism that still exists to push back against that?
Well, the way that the court systems are designed is that states still have their sovereign immunity, right? Or a state has their ability to make laws, and then the federal judges and the federal system is over the whole country, and then it trickles into the states, right?
Okay.
So now with the recent Supreme Court ruling, it's saying that these federal judges can't make decisions that would affect the nation as a whole, right? As far as the injunctions, an injunction is just a fancy word for stopping something, for forcing the Trump administration not to do certain things, right?
Okay.
So Donald Trump is really, really happy about this ruling because it gives him a lot more power. He doesn't have judges now checking him on the lower levels, right? Because he's got the Supreme Court pretty much in his pocket because there's so many conservatives that he appointed, as Q said earlier. But in the federal judge bench, there's, a lot more diversity. There's a harder path for him to just take over. So with this ruling, it makes it impossible for I won't say impossible, nothing's ever impossible, but it makes it harder for these federal judges to make decisions that would affect the country as a whole. So it's yet to be seen exactly how this is going to play out. It's still a little murky. I think that these rulings come down, and even as a lawyer, I read some of these articles because I haven't seen the actual court decision in full yet. And I say, where are they coming up with this stuff?
Yeah.
And I feel like the justices are so hell-bent on getting their agenda across that they kind of in my opinion, just go along with whatever Trump is kind of pushing or whatever they think is leaning towards their political viewpoint instead of actually looking at the Constitution, looking at what is best for the country and what is actually legal and correct. They're just popping off in a way. And it's amazing that people in such a high office would even take the Constitution so lightly and just bend at the whim of what I think is kind of a dictatorship in the making. So did that answer your question?
I think so. I was looking for a modicum of hope there, but
Not saying, and that I guess the little bit of hope is that, it's yet to be seen exactly what will happen. And the Supreme Court does hold a lot of power. So for them to say, it's kind of like slapping down the power of the other federal judges in the system because, it's a tiered system. Of course, the Supreme Court is the highest, and then the federal system is right under that, and then the state system is under that. So it's not necessarily looking great for us to come out as not conservative right-wing people with things that are making sense or going to help, like what Q was talking about, his family and their situation and living in this country. It's kind of going to start moving towards Trump getting to do what he wants to do. But I have faith in the fact that there are still good people who hopefully will stand up if it gets to that point. Every so often we do see a Republican leader come forward and say, hey, that's not right. Let's just hope and pray that that happens here, I guess.
Sure. Okay, that's not nothing. Q, I know you had a few questions.
Well, I don't have a few questions, actually. My problem is, I think we're all kind of looking for hope. And I feel dishonest in trying to give that to people. Right? It doesn't feel very hopeful. I think we've always had this resiliency collectively. Even the nature of our relationship with, our favorite lawyer in the world who helped us establish a nonprofit and helped us contribute to feeding 2.5 million people with #lunchbag, with Living Through Giving. Shout out to AJ.
I love that.
In 80 cities around the world, all at the same time. We all got out of bed on Sunday mornings. Some of us missed church. A lot of people missed America's real religion, which is football. And we got food together and water and toiletries and things for people who are less fortunate. And we did that as a collective around the world, even having involvement from the United Nations. So the nature of our relationship has always been trying to find that light and share it with people who might have lost hope or who might be living in conditions that seem like there's no repair or like there's no coming back or like things won't get better. We've kind of perpetually been those people to remind people, hey, everything's going to be okay. And not thinking about trying to change the world holistically all at once, but changing the world for individual people one at a time. We were committed to that, and we have been for a long time. So we've always been able to, without even hesitating, remind people that, hey, where we're at right now is not where we'll always be, and things can and will get better. Except I don't feel that way. So I can't pretend to. It's really hard to talk about these things because on election day, as soon as it was very, very clear to me, and it was very early in the evening when I realized we're not going to win this thing. And I still have my opinions on how or why that's the case, because not winning, when we were there, we were outside, we were at the rallies, we were all around the country, and we saw the excitement, we saw the momentum. I still don't think things were above board with that, but that's another show and another conversation. The reason why I was so sad as I watched what I knew was going to be the result play out is because I foresaw all these things that are happening. Like, it's not like we weren't sure they were going to happen. Every negative, hateful promise that was made is being upheld. And he started from day one, as Ramses would say, with muzzle velocity, executive order after executive order, and not even pretending. Because right now in this big, beautiful bill, they're trying to hide bad things in the bill, but pretending that they're to the benefit of someone. That first week of executive orders, They didn't even hide anything in anything good. They didn't pretend they were doing anything for anyone. Every order was taking something away from someone, some protection, some right, some social benefit, some, piece of healthcare administration, some access to education, some access to capital funding. Like, all they've done is strip things away. And what we've noticed is there are no roadblocks. There's no emergency brake. There are no systems in place to protect us. No one's coming to help us. It sounds like doom and gloom until you realize it's reality. Like what we're seeing happen on video, on TV, on social media every day to people who don't have anybody that can stand up for them, who can't stop what's happening. And they're essentially empowering regular people to show up and pretend to be there on behalf of the government, and just seeing essentially how long will people let us do what we want. The only positive possibility I see is mass uprising by people who are just tired of being bullied around and
that's what I'm about,
taken away. But short of that, like, I can't even pretend to have any hope. And I'm listening to my sister over there who is well versed in law, who has helped us in so many different ways, not just her areas of expertise, but she's helped us partner with people to learn more about things that she's not an expert on, because she knows who to put us in the same room with, or who in a text thread or an email chain. So she's always been that legal voice for us. And I know that the work that she does right now is incredibly frustrating, because the entire career that she's built has been on the basis of protecting these documents that they're shredding up and throwing in the trash. So it's very difficult for me to have that glimmer of hope, or to even ask questions, because I'm at this point now, it's like, for so long as what can we do? And I'm like, day by day, realizing nothing.
Well,
kind of hope that the worst things don't happen is what it feels like.
But maybe the glimmer of hope could be always keep your cell phone, record. They have the new Meta glasses that are sunglasses, and you can, with the click of a button, you can start recording. Record people doing these things. Record people doing horrific racist things, and hope that you can get a hold of someone who can hold their feet to the fire. Everything's not stripped away. I tell everyone, use the technology that we have to call out people, because even if it's the court of public opinion,
that counts. Yeah.
That counts. Like, if we can't win against a company for being racist or something, we can still boycott, right? We've shown that we have the power to boycott certain businesses. Look at Target. Mm-hmm. They're taking massive hits to their profits. And so you always have to have your technology in your hand or accessible, so that if something awful starts happening, you hit that record button.
Sure.
And then you can share it on your social media. You can make things go viral. Like Q said, he had a video that went viral. That is still available to every single person. Yeah. And most people do have access to a cell phone with a camera. So I know it's bleak, but I think that is the biggest tool that we have right now.
And while we're here, I'm going to share a piece of advice that you shared with me, with our listeners, for folks that do end up, because, I think that a lot of our work started out just being very anti. We were anti the way policing was done. I don't want to say we're anti-police. I don't think we're ever anti-police, but not a big fans of the way policing was done. And, a piece of advice that once upon a time you shared with me that recently I posted on my social media, and I saw you in the comments, was that if you end up in trouble with the police, you don't have to talk to them, and it's probably smarter that you don't. So a couple things to keep in mind. Of course, Amy, we're going to keep this conversation going as things continue to develop. But for now, it is time for us to shift gears. And we're going to talk about folks who better do better. This is from the Black Information Network. Texas Representative Jasmine Crockett questioned First Lady Melania Trump receiving an Einstein visa, saying the math ain't mathin', on how she was eligible for a visa meant for those who are extraordinary in academics, athletics, and other fields. Crockett issued her critique of Trump's Einstein visa during a House hearing on Wednesday. Quote, "Let me remind y'all that Melania, the First Lady, a model, and when I say model, I'm not talking about Tyra Banks, Cindy Crawford, or Naomi Campbell level, applied for and was given an EB-1 visa. And what that stands for is an Einstein visa. Now, y'all that don't know, let me tell you how to receive an Einstein visa. You're supposed to have some sort of significant achievement, like being awarded a Nobel Peace Prize or a Pulitzer, or being an Olympic medalist, or having other sustained extraordinary abilities and success in sciences, arts, education, business, or athletics. Last time I checked, the First Lady had none of these accolades under her belt. It doesn't take an Einstein to see that the math ain't math in here. Unquote. Crockett's comments come amid the administration's immigration crackdown. According to the Washington Post, Trump was given a green card through the EB-1 program in 2001. The program has been used by academic researchers and multinational business executives, along with those who have demonstrated, quote, sustained national and international acclaim, unquote, according to the Post. Okay. So, I think that, as we're talking about sort of who better do better, really the entirety of the immigration system. I mean, it's fair to say that we know that money makes the world go round. People that have money, people that have access to powerful friends, all that sort of stuff, can grease the gears and get through society and navigate the stratification of a society or the societal framework or whatever. So I don't think that the issue here is that Melania Trump had access to citizenship or legal status in this country. I think the issue is that many people don't. So it's not like we're necessarily, or Jasmine, I don't want to speak for Jasmine Crockett, but it doesn't feel like Jasmine Crockett is mad at Melania. Rather, she's calling out the privilege that Melania has. But there are other people who actually do contribute to society in meaningful ways, well beyond Melania Trump, that might not even qualify for a Einstein visa, but they qualify for a normal visa. And when their visa expires or whatever their story is, there's just no mechanism in place, and no one sings their success stories. Rather, they've been villainized by, indeed, Melania's husband's administration. And many of these people are decent folks, well-meaning folks. Most of the people that have been rounded up in the ICE raids had no criminal record or anything like that. And I'm sure, Q, you can speak more to this, but I know that this is something that is a little bit more consuming in your world than for most folks.
Well, I have direct, experience with applying for and receiving what used to be referred to as the alien with extraordinary ability visa, the EB-1 or the O-1, which, my ex-wife was granted because she was a Billboard topping artist. I don't think Melania has done such a thing. I think that's kind of the point. It's not beef with her, just like it's not beef with white people when we call out the way law enforcement unfairly treats Black people. We're not saying treat them worse or deny Melania access. It's treat us better and give us access. Like sitting on top of a throne of privilege, pointing out all the things that you think are wrong as you benefit from that same privilege. The hypocrisy is very, very loud. You're talking about getting rid of birthright citizenship for a person whose parents were immigrants, whose wives are immigrants, and whose children are anchor babies. Like, the hypocrisy is so loud. Like, you want to get rid of all these protections that you also benefit from because you don't need them, because you're circumventing law, circumventing due process, and circumventing the Constitution. So that party has kind of adopted that position that things are only good if they benefit us. If anybody else benefits from them, then they're no good at all.
And I think there's something to be said, too, about Elon Musk. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know his immigration status or his immigration story of one of his parents, but I do recall there being some chatter about Elon Musk's citizenship and his story as he came to this country. And again, it's one of those things where, nobody's saying that these exceptional individuals or these connected individuals or people with money should not have access to a legal path to citizenship or to, documentation or whatever. But I think that the fact that it's so hard for so many people, it's such a long, tedious process. And then the process switches every 4 years because there's a new administration, which causes all these people who are trying to do it the right way to start back at zero. to then have these people who are indeed trying to do this the right way under an administration where hypocrisy kind of seems to be central to it all, to then go into judicial hearings and snatch people who are not yet citizens but working on it feels crazy, and those people better do better.